He's like, Taylor, have you heard this thing called like fans only? Are you aware of how much money this person makes? I'm like, I'm very aware. I'm very aware. Oh, the person seemed flustered on the phone. I was like, you're not talking to someone who went to Wharton Business School. You're talking to someone who like majored in sculpture, found a way to like turn their side hustle of crocheting into like $100,000 business. As I go into my 30s, what do I want the overall theme to be? And I want it to be service.
Hey, welcome to Table Moments, the Homies podcast, where we talk about anything and everything, but no politics. I'm your host and captain, Ayman. This week, we have a very special guest. He's a guy on a mission to help creatives understand, manage, and invest wealth management for creatives. He understands creatives because he is one. He did it for years, and now he's building the tools that will support creators to do what they do best, create. The financial advisor that trades in the suits for the denim jackets, Taylor Ayers. Welcome to the show.
You absolutely cooked with that.
Yeah, I try to put some effort into this, you know.
That was like so good. Yeah, that's really that's a pretty good kind of Cliff Notes version of like what I'm working on, where I'm going, how I'm trying to navigate this like new kind of career path, and like kind of my ideal target market per se.
Yeah, especially like as someone, because you were a creative or you still are, I would say.
Went to art school in Savannah. I'm actually moving back to my college town. And I've been self-employed as an artist. I started selling my work in school. And then like my last 2 years of school, like that's how I was paying rent and going to school and playing college sport. Literally like screen printing stuff like out of my 3-bedroom apartment with my friend. And then I was just like tattooing out of my apartment to pay rent. And then just literally anything creative, basically. As of let's say I just turned 30 like 2 weeks ago, and like the past 6 months, like I always have this analogy, you know, when like a celebrity has like an insane substance abuse problem, but they're like very wealthy, and they go out to like Arizona or Utah to like dry out. They go out there and they stay in like some very nice spa, and there's zero humidity, but it's 120 degrees, and they're doing like hot yoga and drinking like adaptogens to like sober out. Like that's with my version, but it was like an intellectual dry out. But basically, I was kind of just in a situation to where I was like, how do I want to spend my time? What do I want to focus my energy on? Kind of in a way, like what's the most like frictionless this next decision in a way.
I guess you started in this field of financial services for specifically focusing on the creative side.
So like a little bit of context, my dad had an accounting firm when I was a kid, then he closed it, and then I helped him restart it almost a year ago. And then our first check was doing a tax return for someone. And my only community that I knew of was like, I've been selling art and still am like to people on Instagram. Like that was my main point of contact for selling work. I may not necessarily buy photographs from my photographer friend, or I may not necessarily buy sculptures from my friend who makes sculptures, but all of them need tax returns. All of them need to do their taxes. So for me, that was like a mental switch. I was like, why send it somewhere else? I was like, I can just restart this with my dad and put the money back into both of our pockets. It's like, one, give myself some money, bring in some income for me. Two, like bring some money into the house, like to like the Ayers household, which was a huge driving force for me. Now it's just a situation where we have like 10 clients and we do bookkeeping and tax returns, and we had someone who made their money on OnlyFans. We have one content creator on TikTok, potentially another one. All of our clients are from people that either like I've met in person or like I've just met online, and just kind of like leveraged the trust and leverage like, hey, this is what we're doing if we could help you.
I think your idea of like serving the creative space, or at least creators specifically, because I think the financials of that kind of space are different from like the traditional. Like if you work that 9 to 5, I think it's a lot easier to do the taxes. But then if you're creative, you have all these supplies or all these different things that are sort of inputs to the work that you produce. And I think from a tax perspective, there's a lot of nuance there.
I had this interaction with my dad, and it was something that would have been written out of like Seinfeld or something out of like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where my dad's like, he goes like, wait, this person makes this much money from TikTok? He was like, what is Grail? And I'm like, it's like a reselling site. And he's like, people buy old clothes? And I'm like, that's a $1 billion market. And he was like, trying to explain to my dad, he's like, Taylor, have you heard this thing called like fans only? And I was like, yes. I was like, he's like, are you aware of how much money this person makes? I'm like, I'm very aware. I'm on their close friends. I know what kind of life they're living. You know, and like we help them and kind of navigate their tax situation. But like talking to my dad about how to understand the mind of a creative, and then also my dad was like, "Oh, the person seemed flustered on the phone." I was like, "Dad, you're not talking to someone who went to Wharton Business School. Like you're talking to someone who like majored in sculpture and like found a way to like turn their side hustle of crocheting into like $100,000 business. Like you're talking to like you have to understand that this stuff is foreign to like the most creatives cannot switch between the two. Like cannot. They're like capitalism isn't real, money is fake, burn the whole system down, but also like buy my ashtray that looks like a cowboy boot. Like you know what I mean? Like and it's like nothing wrong with that, but it's like most creatives cannot operate between the two. And so trying to like kind of coach my dad in this like situation, you know, like they've seemed overwhelmed because this is all foreign to them, or like they've seemed overwhelmed because maybe they've never paid taxes, maybe they don't know the difference between a W-2 and a 1099. But also on the flip side of that, he's a black and white accountant, which is exactly what you want as an accountant. Like you, in my opinion, you don't really want your accountant to be like the biggest visionary. You want him to be like either you're making money or not. Like you want him to be very sterile, and that's why he's like really great at what he does, because no one understands numbers. Like my dad can compute anything on the dime like that, and he's got that real practical financial brain. So that's also been fun listening to him, learning like what's the difference between this, what's the difference between that. One being like a point of contact for people, but also being like, these are things that I'm learning too, because I'm about to take an accounting class. It's just an interesting dynamic between both of us. Because like he's an introvert, I'm not really. So he was like making a joke. He was like, you don't struggle with selling people. He's like, you don't even know the difference between a debit and a credit, and you're selling people on financial services. And it's like I'm doing all the selling. I'm like cold calling. I'm like walking up, be like, if you need ever help your taxes, he's like, you don't even know the diff. He's like, you have no formal training in any of this finance stuff, and you've gotten us all of our clients. I'm just like able to like I can sell anything. So that's kind of like an interesting kind of like mixture of stuff that my dad and I have going on.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good combo, because I think you have this outward personality that I think is magnetic. Even it comes through on social media, and that is necessary for business and entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
But then you also, like you said, you need someone who understands the numbers, the operations, the details that honestly I think a lot of creatives don't care to know either, because it's like it's the other side of the brain.
That's why I've been trying to do these videos with my dad, like on Reels and TikTok, and just because it gets so much good traction. Yeah. And people like love the dynamic of it. But it is super interesting because I also have a heart. I also like have a heart for people who are in more like the tech founding space, which is something I'm also interested in. This is not a knock on his intelligence. I think this is maybe just from the way his brain is wired, and also a little bit generational. But like trying to explain to my dad what a SaaS product is like insanely hard. He's like, wait, so what is ChatGPT? Like, what is, like, I don't, like, what's the product? Like, I'm like, no, the product is like the service. He's like, software as a service? He's like, what does that even mean? I'm like, technically QuickBooks is what we use. That's a SaaS product. It's not that glamorous. It's not like Figma. Like my dad is very much so like, no, your work, your product is like something you see and build with your hands. It's like, I can see a car being sold. He's like, I don't understand what this person does. This person got a $500,000 check for an idea. He's like, where is all this money coming from? And I'm like, venture capitalism, baby. It's like, I was like, there's so much money out there, Dad. I was like, he's like, you ever heard of this thing called WeWork? I was just like, yes, of course. He's like, you mean people are paying for something online? Who's going to pay for that? And I'm like, it's $1 trillion industry. So it's like kind of this like fun dynamic. Like you said, like you need someone who understands like the meat and potatoes, like kind of like understanding of like a bookkeeping. Like vision aside, like vision is great, but you're $100,000 over budget, or you're overdrafted 7 different accounts, which most like visionary founders do not want to hear, because they're like, no, you don't really see the vision. It's like, you can't see the vision if you can't keep the lights on to see it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like kind of this interesting thing where it's like my personality leans more towards like, I'm just like move fast, like get in there, like cool, let's do it. Like, and that's not really my dad's personality. So trying to find the harmony between the two is like a really big thing for us. So
yeah, it reminds me of like the whole Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak situation. Like Jobs can come up with all the ideas and make demands about what the product should be and the design and how it should look and how it should function, but someone has to actually build the thing to make sure it works.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because like I think that's sometimes where I come into some of the resistance of with things because I was talking to my mom, I was like, yeah, I think my dad actually would have not believed in someone like Steve. And have a little bit resistance because like besides my parents, like my mom, like Steve is like the biggest inspiration to me. Like that's like we're both adopted. Like I have a uniform basically because of him. Like, I have like one quote and it's like here's to the crazy ones and like that's it. Like the story of the garage and the founder in the garage, I'm like fucking send it. That is me. I'm like I love every single thing about it. I wore New Balances for a long time. I love it, you know. But like something like that where it's like the idea person and then also having someone who can actually like help you build it. And it's like I can build stuff, but I don't come from a technical background. Like my only point of reference for product is going from like idea to like a screen printed t-shirt or like a painting or whatever, which is still product, but it's like not through the pipeline of like, no, we got to build a deck and then we got to do a wireframe and then we have to do the back end and we got to get the bugs out. And I'm like, okay, I don't need to see a PowerPoint deck. Like, let's just like, this isn't that hard. I think a little bit of something that helps me is a little bit of like my naivety, quite frankly, is
Yeah.
like, I don't know how hard it is. So I'm like, it can't be impossible. So
Yeah.
Jensen Huang of like, who's the CEO of NVIDIA, like someone asked him, he was like, what, if you were 30 years old, would you do this again? And he was like, no. He's like, I wouldn't. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, it's not because I'm not grateful of where I am. He's like, we didn't know how hard it was going to be. And like, when you're a self entrepreneur, like that level of delusion is sometimes necessary because if you're any rational person who knew how hard it was, will an entire industry into existence, you would be like, no. So that's kind of like a fascinating thing.
Yeah, it's always that delicate balance. And in order to get anything off the ground, I think it's that pairing that is required. I heard someone say once, you need a hacker, a hipster, and a hustler in order to make anything work.
Totally.
And my struggle is I think I'm more of on the technical side where I've been pushing over the last like few years, pushing into that creative side, especially making content online, really getting a chance
Totally.
to experiment a lot and realize how uncertain a lot of this is. Even when I make a piece of content, I don't know if it's going to do well. I just put it out there and see what happens. And,
Dude,
using the reception and then interacting with people. And I'm
bro.
an introverted person too. So it's a wild journey.
I mean, dog, that's the whole thing with this TikTok stuff. It's like I've tried three different niches over the past 4 years, and like oddly enough, one of them kind of worked, but it was more on like the advice self help, and I was like, I hate this. Didn't post for a while, and then I also was just like scrolling and like just kind of like doom scrolling or whatever, and then I started posting stuff about like the raw denim, and then like out of nowhere, got like 40,000 views, and like some
Yeah.
people being like that jacket's too short, or some people be like, why you like that little ass t-shirt, or some people were just like, why don't you ever spend money on this, and then other people were like, hold on, wait a second. They're like, where'd you get that? Where are those jeans from? They're like, what are your thoughts on this? Or being like, what's the t-shirt? And I'm wearing, I'm like, you're paying $90 for two t-shirts I can get at Target for $5? And it's like, no, but you don't understand. They're made in Japan on a machine. I was like, my brother in Christ, these are actually made in the factory that only has two of these machines and supply. And I'm like, go like full like real time baseball on someone. And so that's kind of been like this interesting like space I've been like navigating where it's like, if I take it too, like, I know how I am. If I get too technical about something, I completely lose interest. It kills it for me. Like so that's why sometimes I'll post a lot and then sometimes I won't post and then I'll go live for an hour and then sometimes I'll post 30 times in a day. But it's like organically trying to build that up to where it's like, if I'm going to do this TikTok stuff, I don't know what's going to take off. So I have to be mindful of what I say to an extent, but also like, I'm not about to get a ring light. Like, and no shade to people who do that, but I'm like, that's not going to work for me. Like, it has to be easy and fast. Like, make a video, put my phone in the pocket, go inside. So I think that's kind of been like an interesting way. And that kind of speaks to how I am as a person, quite frankly. Like, having enough of the audacity to be like seeing the show The Bear, and I'm like, hell yeah, put me in the kitchen. I'm like,
Yeah, the
put me in
bear.
the kitchen.
I don't know. I think even pursuing this creative stuff is like a lot of it you will learn as you go. Which is something
Totally.
I've found to be true for myself. Like, and then every time I try to, or there's something I want to explore, because I feel the same way where I can't do, because you see this on social media where a person finds their thing and then that's the only type of video that they make and then they'll get the
Yeah.
views, they know they'll get the views, but I don't think that's something I could ever do because honestly I don't
Same.
find it mentally stimulating at all. Like I'm always experimenting and always looking to push and try new things, and I found that I end up having to learn things as I go along. I've gotten to the point where yeah, I don't know it yet but I'll figure it out, and that's sort of been my attitude at life so
I
far.
mean, that's kind of where because like, as I get more traction, I'm getting all these notifications for like TikTok Shop, and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. But as like anal as I am about money and like practically speaking, just the like crazy cycle of consumerism, especially in fashion, it's like I could not honestly go online and like H&M just sent me this clothes and you should buy this stuff. Like, it's also one, like I wouldn't want to just like shill stuff to people buying unnecessary stuff. I mean, also from just like a financial standpoint, like consumer debt is like literally at an all-time high, and people are like, most people are living on credit cards. I cannot ethically feel good in my soul selling something to someone I know that is not in their best interest. But also on the other part of that, like my entire approach with fashion is solely through the lens of like, do not buy a lot of stuff. Buy like 3 pairs of jeans and that's it. Because that's my point of reference. It's like buy quality and like less on the quantity. So it's like, it wouldn't be an honest thing for me to start like shilling like skinny tea to my platform. One, it wouldn't sell. But then also on the flip side, like I know how I'm wired. I was just like, okay, if people are listening to me about this like denim stuff, but also asking me like my thoughts on like Playboy Cardi, and also asking me my thoughts on like such and such, there's a community I'm building here that I have access to. I can leverage that into like approachable finance. So it's like that fine line battle, a fine line balance of like people who are into fashion and creatives who maybe don't have the best experience with money, but they like quote unquote trust me online. So they see me posting about it in the same format that I'm also posting this other stuff. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. Like I can get with this. So it's like, what's the way that I can like leverage this into something else? Like leverage this and something else. So, and not even like a transactional way, just more like you don't have to like follow Bloomberg USA at like on Instagram to get your like not like a creative, a fashion, realistically a fashion designer making something super conceptual and wearing uncomfortable shoes walking through Brooklyn isn't really going to care about basis points and interest rates. They don't have to. Like I kind of let me take care of that, but finding a way to speak to that community, I think, is a huge market that like no one is really taking advantage of.
I think you said on one of your videos, you cook, let me clean. And I was
Basically.
like, yo, that's a slogan for the financial firm, bro.
Bro, I had a huge argument with my dad because he was like, I don't like that. That sounds like we're a cleaning service. And like, I posted on my Instagram, and the feedback I got from like real designers, like they were like, yeah, this is great. They're like, we love this. And my dad was like, Dad, we're not talking to someone who has an MBA. Like we're talking to someone who like probably didn't go to college, sold drugs as a kid, fell into tattooing. And like we're talking to a completely different market here. And so I'm going to add financial services, like we compromised, but I'm going to like still add the cook, we clean thing. And it's also that kind of thinking, I think, speaks to the creative mind, where it's like, I think a lot of people like think in memes or like think in like rap lyrics, specifically creative. So it's like the classic, if you could go into any room, like, what's she order? And everyone can be like, fish fillet. Like everyone can like finish that lyric. You know what I'm saying? Regardless of how you feel about Kanye, like, there is a weight to that. You know what I'm saying? I really enjoy that. And I was like, what's a fun way to kind of have like a very like creative approach to finance and not just put Ayers and Associates, financial services and bookkeeping. I'm like, that sounds so sterile. Like that sounds so sterile. And also just doesn't speak to our demographic, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think you make a good point. If you're approaching creatives and you come off as really sterile, I think especially because creatives, as you were mentioning, probably have never experienced it before, never dealt with this financial stuff. They probably there's a trust barrier that you have to sort of
Huge.
overcome.
Huge.
So communicating in a way that they understand and simplifying it in that video that you did, where it's like, you cook, we clean, is like the perfect summary of what you're offering. And I was just like, that's brilliant marketing right there.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of something else I was talking about, because I have friends who like did the more traditional finance route, like work in private equity and like work on Wall Street, and I love learning from them. And like I'm on some of their close friends like on Instagram, and I get to see like really cool, interesting stuff. I also know that like there are circles that I can get into that someone who went to like Yale School of Economics cannot get into, like at all. I'm like, bro, you look like a cop right now. Like you look like a Fed. Like chill. Like why are you dressed like Jerome Powell at the kickback right now? Like relax. I'm like, relax, Mark. So it's like trying to kind of leverage that and be like, no. Like I understand. Like the ideal situation, truly on the guy, I've talked about this, would be a situation where like I get all these licenses and like after a year or two, like meet a kick-ass band who's like, yo, we're going on tour. They're like, we need someone to help us with this, and be like, cool, put me on salary for 3 months and I'll handle all the finances for every single thing to do with it. I'll handle merch. I'll handle accounting. I'll handle taxes. I'll handle retirements. You go perform, go eat Doritos and be a 20-year-old idiot and like go sing. I'll handle this all. It was like, that would be like a really great setup to be like, put me on the bus for a European tour. I'll do that. Like, shit, like you crazy. That'd be so fun. Or like be at a gallery show in New York or LA and someone's like, oh, we just sold this painting. And I'm like, okay, cool. You sold this for like $20,000, $100,000 or whatever. And I'm like, I think the creative mind is like, I have $100,000 to spend. It's like, realistically, you probably only have 30 plus or minus. I'm like, and you live in the craziest tax state. So, but kind of being that voice to being, oh, cool. Like you sold a painting. Let's go get tattooed. Like, let's go get tattooed. And then also when that check clears, let's go meet up at like Blue Bottle and like, let me help you set some of this money aside. Like, let me get you a high yield savings account. It's like, cool. If you like risk, it's like, maybe don't go all in on Shiba Inu coin. You know what I'm saying? Like kind of help a creative understand, be like, hey, I understand where you're coming from. Like if you want to make like super weird art about your traumatic experience growing up as a kid in Mississippi and you just like hit a weird lick and they're represented by like David's Warner Gallery, I think that's great. Let me help you navigate the finances and be set up for retirement, because it's like, I do not care how special you think you are. One of these days, that phone is going to stop ringing. And thinking that it's not is insanely arrogant. You're hot now, but I was like, have you ever been through a market downturn? And I'm like, if you think selling art is hard, try selling art in a recession. Like, that's a different breed. I was like, if you think that the 10-year engineer at Meta is getting laid off, you haven't seen anything. And so it's like, how do we think wisely about our finances? How do we, quite frankly, live within our means, which most people can't do? Not to go David Ramsey mode, because I understand that it's not really like a singular data point, but like I think there's a lot of things where a lot of artists are like in situations to where it's like on paper they make X, Y, even like people who work in tech, quite frankly, people who make X, Y, and Z, but also spend X, Y, and Z. So like they're like forced to work in a way.
Like, especially for creatives. Yeah, the Meta engineer, they work the job, salary, it's pretty standard, but the creative, especially the way you described it in your video describing entrepreneurship, how there could be a lot of highs and a lot of lows, and at least making it possible so that you can live as a creative and still do what you do.
Yes.
And stabilizing that financial situation that normally comes in bursts.
Yeah, I have a friend who's the biggest artist in Savannah. I've told her this before, and I'm going to tell her this when I see her. And I was like, you're making money from these murals, and you bought a house off that. And I think that's great. But I was like, quite frankly, I was like, you can make $100,000 selling on every single drop for t-shirts. I guarantee it. Like you could clear $100,000. And I love her for this, because what I've talked to her about this is like, she's the perfect fine artist and the perfect client, because she's romantic enough to choose the fine art as a career path. I'm not romantic in that headspace. I'm too much of a capitalist. I'm too practical. Like I love to be creative, but I'm also like, cool, you got a product, sell it. Like it's like that simple to me. And some people are like, I want to paint and draw all day. And I'm like, cannot relate. I think the interesting thing to where it's like during the pandemic, you always saw like everyone was a drop shipper. Everyone had an idea for an app. Everyone was like, come to my day in the life as a sales representative for a Cash App who works 3 days a week and makes $250,000 a year plus $100,000 bonus. And it's like, y'all not see this bubble? I went from serving tables and now I'm the chief executive operations of engineering. I'm like, y'all not see this bubble right now? It's crazy to me. And I'm like, everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. And like, I don't think it's for most people. And it's not like a flex. Everyone has this like, thinks it's like a flex to be an entrepreneur. Like there's nothing glamorous about it. Like, I don't really think anyone understands that. It's statistically not the fastest way to wealth. It's probably the highest probability of depression and anxiety, probably one of the highest number of sociopaths. Just look at the math of it. Like it is statistically not in your best interest, both as a human, both as a creative, and both as like rational person to go down this career path. But like, I'm literally insane and I'm kind of like billionaire bankrupt. So it's like, I like love this idea. Like I'm like all on red. I'm like all on red. Let's go. I'm like Sam Altman who like type shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's go. I'm like, we are so back. But I think my biggest advice to people, that I tell people this, I'm just like, if you want to do this, the amount of obsession you have to have is in complete contrast to every slow life. I think I like this little life video in the world. You need to be very aware of how hard this is. I tell people, and I don't glamorize this, but like I have no subscriptions. I don't have any music. I have no subscriptions on my phone because I'm like that anal about money. I got my credit limit decreased and I took a 20 point credit hit. So I was like, I don't even want to give myself that margin. That level of insanity, I think some people are just like, why would you deprive yourself of like little small points of joy? And I'm like, I completely respect that. I completely get that, but that's just not high on my value list. And I think when you're self-employed, truly looking through the lens of like an ROI, I'm not sure everyone wants to be that practical. And also, like, quite frankly, I've come to realize this, and this was also something I had a realization when I was in Italy. I was like, if there's any part of you that has an issue with capitalism, you need to have a job, not be your own boss. That simple. If you have any slight issue with, like, I understand it, like capitalism, like there's some flaws, like there are flaws to it. But I'm like, if you have an issue with this and you don't want to partake in this, just get a W-2, because this is not for you, big dog. Like, it's just not. If you cannot, to an extent, sometimes ethically, like, look, like if you're raising money and you're trying to do the paper trail to see where this dollar came from, I'm like, this isn't for you, big dog. No one really wants to say that because it's like, oh, well, like you have to think of, I'm like, I'm just being very honest. There's a reason why a lot of money is coming out of the Middle East into California. Like, there's a lot of VC money. Like, and if you ethically have an issue with that, regardless, I just think you have to understand how much harder it will make it on you. Or like if you're trying to do the paper trail of every dollar and like, where's this investor from? Where's that from? It's like, okay, King, this probably isn't for you. Like, it's probably isn't for you, big dog. So I think it's just having very honest conversations with yourself where it's like, if you want to be done working at 5, this isn't for you. And it's okay if it's not. That's okay if it's not. But having that understanding and just being very honest with yourself, being able to understand just how hard it is.
Yeah, I don't think people understand how ruthless entrepreneurship and business can be. It's something I still struggle with today because it's like, I see those lines and there's certain lines I don't want to cross. And I know by not crossing them, it's going to make it much harder. With that comes suffering. Yeah, if people knew that all the glam on the social media with the supercars and all that is not the reality of what this really is, and how a lot of those are rented, a lot of those are just fake numbers that they're saying on social media to sell their course, and how to do things that they probably have never accomplished before. Surrounded with a lot of fraud here, and then selling this dream, and then when you actually try to do it, you're just slapped in the face with the realities of it all.
It's like you realize how hard it is. I mean, I've never been put in this situation, but I think about this a lot. It's like when Steve came back to Apple, like there were like 90 days before insolvency. Like, we have this much runway. And he was like, cool, he fired like 70% of the staff. And he's like, that was the hardest thing I had to do. He's like, I had to tell people who I knew that were friends of mine, be like, you're no longer needed here. But I also knew that the company was at, like, any rational person, layoffs is a very touchy word right now. I'm very aware of that. Very aware of that. But it's like, I don't think any rational person says, I want to be a CEO of $1 billion company. Like, that's not a rational statement. Most people are like, I want to be a firefighter. I want to go to the moon. And I'm not saying that like I have aspirations of laying people off at all. I'm just quite frankly insane enough to where I know like I want to run a company one day. I want to make the hard decisions. Like I'm willing to like put my neck out there, both in like risk and both in like reward for like myself, but also reward in terms of the way products can help people. But I also know that like, I know I have the personality to be like, I will stand in front of this fire and I'll take the heat for this decision. Even if it was a team effort, I'll take the heat. And I just want a team that will back me. I mean, that's also just the reality of posting yourself online. Like, you never know what videos go. I mean, the amount of times that I get absolutely cooked in my comment section, but like I try to turn it around on people and I'm like, you're not going to dunk on me. I'm insane. Thinking like some little Gen Z person like is going to dunk on me. I'm like, bro, I grew up in Call of Duty, Xbox Live chat rooms. You are like, this is not a safe space for you, King. Like you flew here. I grew here.
Yeah. I saw your one video where someone said something and then ended their diss with a LOL. And you're like, bro, if you're going to dunk on me, dunk on me. And I was just like,
oh my God. Oh my God. I'm just like, I know I sound like a boomer, but I'm just like, this damn generation. But I'm just like literally, I'm like, bro, if you're up by 20, tomahawk slam me in front of the opposing crowd. Like, go Kobe Bryant mode. But I'm like, but the thing is, people are like, he was insane and he was toxic. Yeah, okay. Well, he's also one of the greatest athletes ever played ever. And if you're not willing to become that much of a sociopath, probably shouldn't do this. And like, you should probably just work at your local co-op forever, which is completely okay. But just be honest about who you are. Oh, you're going to try to dunk on me? Say it to my face. Like, don't be crazy. FaceTime me right now. Like, I'm insane. Like, I'm insane like that. I was like, don't be crazy. Like, I'll put your name on a billboard. I'll put your name on Reddit. Like, I'm insane, bro. And I think like not taking social, like on a real note, not taking social media so serious. So I'm like, just log off. Like you can literally delete your account at any second. But also on the flip side of that, I think a lot of people are like, I don't understand why they're being so mean to me. I don't understand why they're doing such and such. When it's like, you can reap a lot of benefits of putting yourself out there and putting yourself online. But I don't necessarily think you can get upset when someone's trying to tear you down, because most people just don't have the guts to put themselves online. It's always easier to be a critic than it is a creator. Like always. And so it's like, am I really, like, I sometimes click on these pictures of people who comment on this stuff. I'm like, this kid is 19 years old, wears skinny jeans, Jordans, and basketball jerseys, and follows League Fits on Instagram. I'm not going to blast him. You know what I'm saying? Like, he listens to Yeet and Young Lean and thinks he has taste. I'm not going to blast him. I remember being 19. I know what it's like to biologically like be on the bottom hand of science. I understand that your frontal cortex is not formed. Like, I completely get that. You still think that a Diet Coke is not going to kill you, but statistically it will. I understand that. Being like, okay, cool, you said that, keep moving. And being like, I want to make content, and that's like really that simple to me. It's also just creative.
Every now and then I stumble on an account where they either disable stitches for after making a statement, or they block comments, or they're the type of person who deletes comments because of haters and all that. I'm just like, if you got to do all that, then you're not really made for the social media game.
Bro,
the hate comes with this.
Always said that. I always tell people my DMs are open, my read receipts are on. Like, literally my thinking is, I'm just like, yeah, seeing a crazy comment maybe about your weight, and everyone has their own threshold, so I want to be clear, this isn't like a subjective thing, but seeing a comment about like your weight, or it's like you live with your parents and you're 30 or whatever, and I'm just like, I could get upset, then I'm just like, actually keep doing that. 1,000 of those in the comment section, the algorithm will reward me. I'm like, engagement, boys. We are so bad. If I could get 1 million views on something, and it's like half of the comments are crazy, but also, like you said, it's like whenever I see a creator post something insane, comments have been disabled. I'm like, log off, King. This ain't for you. I'm like, this ain't for you, big dog. I'm like, how are you gonna have this bad of how are you gonna have this crazy of a take, and then be like, I can't believe someone tried to dox me? And it's like, are you serious? Are you serious? It's like, you shouldn't be making comments on people's weight. And it's like, what? I'm like, you turn your comments off. You just gave in. Like, you gave in to it.
It's a public display that they can't handle it. And I'm just like, why are you even here? Why?
Dude, I'm like, that's what just like wrecks me. But I also understand everyone's relationship with stuff is different. Like, all this stuff is like funny and it's like joking, like yada, yada, yada. It's like stuff that will get clicks. But I think I also just come from like a very different, like, I still remember when Instagram first came out, and I still remember when Snapchat was like, just came out of Stanford, like when they dropped out. Like, I'm obviously like younger than like Evan, and like younger than like the founders of Instagram. But like, I still very much so remember like Facebook being like the place for like my generation when I was younger. And so it's like my relationship to, like, I still went outside when I was a kid. You know what I mean? Like, I literally touched grass like as a kid, like spent a lot of time outside. And like, I grew up with like when Tyler the Creator was making like Yonkers, which was like shit that would not fly in today's music sound like whatsoever. And my favorite album is Yeezus. Like, second favorite album is Yeezus. So it's like, that kind of tells you a lot about me as a person. But it's like super fascinating because like everything is online right now. So like that perception is like sometimes one person's only idea of reality. Whereas like for me, like, I can get off this, take my phone off do not disturb, go in the next room, have a conversation, and be like, all right. Whereas some people are so online, and it's like, actually, this person didn't repost this one thing. This person thinks that I'm like, I'm just trying to talk about like Japanese Lupo t-shirts for like this big dog. I'm just trying to talk about Red Wings. It's not that serious.
Yeah, I remember the old internet where flame wars were a common thing. You realize that if you were going to be in the comment section, you could get flamed, and that was just part of the game. Or you get stuff out here. Yeah, dude, all the time. And that was just part of the game. I've treated my comment section and all the haters just as practice. I always try to like exercise my wit and comedy and then try to make the comment section funnier than the actual video. Or usually my videos aren't that funny, but especially like when a hater comes in, now it's like, all right, now I get to have some fun. And
dude, that's why like my friend was talking to me. She was like, the stuff you say in silence to me, she's like, would clear a room. She's like, you would do stand-up. She's like, you should do stand-up. And I've always thought about it being like I already know what I would say. Like, I already know the hills that I would just totally die on. Anytime someone leaves a crazy comment, I'm just like, how can I do something with this? I've always kind of had that thought process where it's just like, I have to have thick skin if I'm going to put myself out there. And it's also like, I can't take everything that personal. And I'm also be in a situation where it's like, if I can exercise my wit, oh my God. I like, if someone says something crazy to me in the comment section, I'm like, if I can like respond fast enough with a better comment, and everyone's like, www, I'm like, we are so bad.
Yeah.
But like, I think just like using humor to cope and showing people that's just not that serious. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I have a shaved head. Yes, I have a bald spot. Your girlfriend also buys art from me. Who's winning? I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like I'm on your girlfriend's close friends, and just know that you're about to have a rough summer, King. Like, so it's like, what am I supposed to do with that, bro? I think it's probably an age thing too, like just not taking something so serious. Because I mean, I get why someone would do that. Like, I told someone this. I don't know what it would be like to be a young girl, 16 on TikTok. Like, I cannot, like, to be a parent of, like, I cannot imagine what it's like. Because I mean, there's with all deep fake stuff. And that's coming from someone who's like, I do lean more positively towards AI more as like a tool, but I'm like, with the deep fake, with like I could not imagine what it's like to be a parent navigating this TikTok world. And I'm just like, oh my God. That's a whole beast in itself.
It's a wild world out there. I don't know. I have a love-hate relationship with these social media platforms because I only joined because I started this podcast, and it
Wait,
started
so
off as
you weren't on social media before?
no, dude, no.
Oh my
So
God.
like, man, just learning all this and then learning like it was all just new for me. At this point, I like the people I've been able to connect with. That's the one thing I didn't anticipate. The people I would get to meet in person actually.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's been great connecting with people, even being able to just DM people or someone DM'd me first, see if we could exchange some information on how to grow on social media or whatever. I was like, that would make for a really cool podcast episode. And he's a
I
rapper
love
who managed to get 1 million Spotify streams without ever going viral. And we get to talk and have that conversation. It's doing well on YouTube. And I like the idea that we can share our experiences online. The things that we know, like you do a lot of especially I've seen a lot of the denim stuff, but like
Yeah.
just sharing information with the world that we've learned so you don't have to. Use this as a source. And it's just, I don't know, a favor to the next generation, I would say.
I was in subreddit and like the raw denim subreddit or like throwing fits subreddit or whatever. And I was like looking for like, so these shirts became like super popular because of the bear. He wore this one and a different one. I bought
Did
it
you
because
wear it before? Did you wear it before
no,
the bear? Okay.
no, but I've always worn t-shirt. Okay, relax. Like, he's like, okay, sheep, but he's like, okay, cheap. But I had always worn t-shirt and jeans, like always. But I was like, oh, like I really, and I'd always been into like Japanese, like denim and stuff. And then like the like Japanese clothes is just like basically one click over from that. So then when I saw that on Carmi, and I was like, oh, I like the way that fits. And I was like, did some more research. And I was trying to figure out what it was. And I was like, because I'd only worn like with certain like Uniqlo t-shirts, but I was like very hard on them. Yada 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 yada. I had posted on it, and then I had this one video. It was like I posted it at like 8 a.m. in like my parents' kitchen. I was like, this is the only t-shirt I wear. Has like 30,000 views, and like, and like, you never know what will blow up. It's so weird. It didn't hurt that I put like the t-shirt from the bear, so I think the algorithm saw that too and pushed that. But my point being is like I found this website. Some people are like, it's all out of stock. Where can I buy it? And I found this. I went like on Reddit, found a website in the comment section of a post on a subreddit from 7 years ago,
Wow.
and I like posted this link. I was like, this can't be real, because like a lot of the issues with like the Japanese stuff is that because one of the biggest reasons why it's expensive is yes because it's like well made, but also you're paying for like import fees into the States. If something like $300, a good 30 to 40% of that could just be getting it here. Very insane for some people. It's very insane for any rational person, but that's more on like understanding import export. But this website, normally a pack of 2 of these is like $100, $109, but a pack of 2 was like 63. And like I green screened, I was like on TikTok, I was like, all right, I don't like to gatekeep, which is true. Like I believe everyone deserves access to information. I was like, I don't want to gatekeep, so here's this. Of course, this video gets like 30,000 views. They're like, here's how you can buy Japanese clothing at a good price. All this shit sold out to where I couldn't get anything. And I was like, man, if I had some fish on the thing, bro.
Yeah, you should have bought a bunch before you plugged.
Bro, I was like, I should have got it. I was like, bro, I should have gotten to the seed round, damn it. I was like, this could have been my Uber.
Dude, I recently read Shoe Dog. This is the story of Nike and Phil Knight and how he started when it was just Blue Ribbon Company. And they were Japanese running shoes. And so he went to Japan, found a manufacturer and all that. And then that's how he he started selling Nikes. They were Japanese shoes. So that could be a lane, a side hustle for you, bro.
Bro, no, that I mean that's also like I was talking about this the other day. Like that's also a goal with like the TikTok stuff. It's like I can honestly say, like, I mean, you're very aware of like what proof of concept is, and like I made like my first 4 pennies on TikTok Live, and like today and yesterday, and I was like, that's not $100, but if I can make a penny, I can make $1, and I was like, proof of concept, baby, I'm running with this. So like that was like enough for me to run with it, and it's like this is kind of on entrepreneurship stuff. It's like as someone who's literally had a career of commodifying something they're deeply passionate about and seeing the beauty and the absolute beast of that, I was like, I would never do content creation full time, like ever. I have zero aspiration in that. I don't aspire to. I would love to do like sponsored content. It would be so cool, especially with the finance stuff I do with my dad. It would be so cool to do sponsored content, maybe with like a Robinhood or like an Acorns or like a TurboTax or like a Morgan Stanley. Like if there's a way to even like leverage, like, hey, we have access to like 300,000 people. Or it would be cool to do like sponsored content with like, I don't know, go to like a New York fashion event. Like that would be so cool. And be like, hey, Taylor, like, we would love for you to come to this event where we're showing off some denim. And I'd be like, yo, like, that's dope. Like, I love stuff like that. Like, that is, like, ideal for me more so than, like, hey, this is the Alex Earl, like, ring light. And that's cool if that's your thing. That's just, I'm not interested in that. And this is something that I am aware of and I've spent a lot of money on. And also in terms of, like, I've done the legwork. I'd rather just share it with younger people because I did not have me. Like, I'm only a child. I did not have me when I was 18. So it's like, I did not have, like, if I could help, like, a young man, like, navigate their style and not blow up their bank account in the meantime, like, I would love to help someone, you know? And so I think that's where I'm just like, I'll share this information with you. It's like, even if and I think that's like the next stage of my life. As I go into my 30s, what do I want the overall theme to be? And I want it to be service. I want it to be like, what's the most amount of people I can serve?
It reminds me of, I've been reading the Bible a lot lately. And
oh, yeah, nice.
Yeah, so those themes are definitely like something I've been really trying to wrap my head around and realizing how I'm going to have to move differently. Which a lot of forgiveness and a lot of less combative. Even I've noticed it's even changed like the way I even make content and even the clapbacks, which I enjoy so much.
Dude,
I'm realizing maybe it's not.
I know. I think about that a lot actually, where the amount of times where I've wanted to respond to something and I've deleted it and I'm like, this would be funny. This would be hysterical. Actually, but I was also just like, I'm not responsible for someone else's actions, but I don't know what that person is going through, and I wouldn't want them to be like, hold me in such a high weight for what I say and be like, well, Taylor didn't like this, I'm gonna fucking kill him, or I'm gonna kill him. Like I like, the world is crazy, bro. The world is crazy. I think when you are blessed with the gift of being able to like influence a group of people to do something, that is really great. And that also comes with an insane amount of responsibility. And even being as like outspoken and like unapologetically as myself as I am, I believe that I have to be insanely careful with the way I say things because I'm fully aware that like some young 20-year-old kid could be like, I need to get a line of credit and go buy these $700 jeans. I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. I'm like, you're trying to go toe to toe to someone. This is not me, but like you're trying to go toe to toe with someone who's making $300,000 a year and has no debt. It's like 700 to that person is buying a coffee. Like, you know, it's like, and that's like a very consumerist like example, but being like, I don't want to be a 30-year-old trying to like dunk on a 21-year-old kid who's like navigating college for the first, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like some 21-year-old kid in like Wichita, Kansas with a mom who's like dying. Like, I'm like, that just makes me look terrible. And also just quite frankly, from a brand perspective, if a brand were to see that, that could mess up my bag and I'm good. I'm like, we're trying to make money over here. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I may not get political. I may not always agree with everything Rogan says, but if Rogan wants to have me on the podcast, I'm going on the podcast. Like, you know, I'm going on the show. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, actually, no, I'm good. I'm like, yeah, like I'm going to turn down being in front of 40 million people. You crazy. So it's just like interesting thing. Like, if I can exercise my wit, I will. Like, I know I could like tomahawk dunk someone. I know I'm smart enough to do that. Like, and I'm like, but I'm not going to. You're a young kid, and I'm not going to do that.
I think you're about that age. Soon enough, in the comment section, people are going to start calling you Unc.
They have. Yeah,
it's crazy, isn't it? It's like we're in our 30s, bro. What are you talking about, Unc?
Bro, I was like, what you thinking about this, Unc? And I'm like, don't do that. Bro, literally, someone in the comment section was like, thank you, Unc. And I'm like, what are you doing? But I tell you, the funny thing is, man, it's like, I was dating a girl. She was technically 25, or technically 25 is a crazy way to state her age. But I meant like, yeah, I didn't mean that. I mean, my bad. I came out wrong. Yeah, she was like, I'm literally Gen Z, and you talk more Gen Z than I do. And I was like, it's because I'm online. It's because I'm like, literally, my friends would be like, I've never heard someone in real time be like, please, or be like, per, or I'm just like, slay. And they're just like, bro, you're literally 30. I'm like, baby, I'm young, baby. Like, I'm young. They're just like, you're more Gen Z than me, and I have to Google. It's like, you're literally a millennial. I'm Gen Z. I have to Google what you say sometimes. And I'm just like, come on, big dog. You know what's going on? It's like, bro, they're like, where do you get this from? I'm like, bro, I'm so behind. It's just so funny.
Yeah, it is. It is interesting, this whole living on the internet thing. I've even noticed my girl. I always run ideas by her. I'm like, do you think this would make a funny video idea? Do you think this would be an interesting video? And then like everything I see. Usually, like, at least before I started reading the Bible, a lot of my ideas were super edgy. I like pushing the line, which is my love-hate relationship with social media, because it's like, I get shadow banned a lot. I like saying things, honest, true things that I know to be true that people don't like hearing. I don't know. I just have it in me to be like, to push.
I'm with you. And I think navigating that in this, so like for a little bit of context, I'm from like the deep South. Like I'm truly from like not Atlanta, like truly Southern. You know, like I have friends who I grew up with who moved away, then moved back and had kids, you know, with all the, I know this isn't a political podcast, so I won't really too into that. I see a lot of different things on my Instagram daily. A lot of people who I hang out with and on both sides. And that would like kind of throw off my like very left leaning Brooklyn friends a lot. You know what I mean? And which is like fine, you know, and also like my art school friends are like, how on earth could you? I'm just like, okay, anyways, but I think my identity is solid enough to where I can look at something and be like, I can acknowledge that for what it is, but like, I don't think I'm at the risk of being radicalized. I was like, I'm mature enough to be like, okay, this is crazy. That's an interesting point. This is insane. That's an interesting point. You know, I think also a little bit of that is probably coming from you. There's I think that personality, that approach is a little bit more welcomed in maybe like the tech startup VC world. I mean, you see like the relationship between like the CEO of Palantir and then and then Peter Thiel, who's a huge backer of it. And it's like they politically disagree on like everything, you know, but also like having that understanding with each other. I listened to his big podcast. You ever heard All In?
Yeah.
Yeah, I listened to that like religiously. And there's a lot of points in there I disagree with. There's also a lot of points I agree with too. And I think also like coming from the South and seeing just the blanket statement that some people wipe the South with, or it's like, there's a bunch of hicks and rednecks on there. And I'm just like, I understand what you're saying. To completely just wipe an area in a one blanket statement is the most contrasting and ignorant thing you can do for someone who went to one of the most elite private liberal arts schools. So it's like this super interesting kind of dynamic to where even navigating conversations with like girls, quite frankly, where you're just like, why don't you post this? Or why don't you post that? Or it's like, I love to fish. I love to fish. And I posted a fish pic the other night on my Instagram and people were like, oh, this is crazy. And I was like, this isn't, they're like all my liberal art school friends are like, oh my God, this is insane. All my like friends who like maybe are like more Democrat, but they're not, but they like hunt and like make their own beef jerky. They're like, hell yeah, brother. They're like, tight lines. And I'm like, don't care nothing about nothing else but the tide, baby, roll tide. I'm like, hell yeah. I'm like, I go in my country bag. I'm like, try that in a small town. And then I'm also just like, hey Siri, play Dua Lipa. I'm like, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, so it's kind of a funny thing to kind of navigate.
Yeah, definitely. Like, you don't find that in a lot of people, the diversity and the spectrum and how wide that spectrum is, especially for you. Like, I noticed even in your content, I was like, you know, you seem like an interesting character, and I knew I'd like you. And then even after having this conversation, for sure, I'm just like, yo, there's so much we could talk about, especially like you like the All In, you know, the VC world, all that stuff. I got into software too over the last and, you know, learning how to code and everything like that. And I listened to that podcast too. And yes, J. Cal and Chamath are idiots.
Yep. Yeah. I like some of the stuff that Chamath says, but sometimes I'm just like, damn, I'm like, imagine being this affluent and like being this tone deaf sometimes. I'm like, that's crazy.
Here's the thing. I admire the podcast because it shows everyone who listens to it that you can still be an idiot and rich.
Yeah. You definitely don't have to be like a Rhodes Scholar to like do this. And it's not the same that there aren't some founders out there who would like who are like insanely intelligent. Like I think some of ethically people have a lot of issues with Palantir, but I think what Alex is doing with Palantir, I think is super interesting to me.
Yeah.
Like I love his background because he doesn't have a technical background. Like he majored in like philosophy. And I think that's super fascinating. Or like some that's very close to me coming from a design background, who's had probably the biggest influence on me besides Steve, which was Brian Chesky in Airbnb. Like went to Rhode Island School of Design. And like one of his biggest things that he talked about, someone was like, what do you think? Who do you think will be running the company in the future? And he's like, I think designers will be and creative people will be running at the helm of these Fortune 500 companies. He said, I think my design background helped me a lot. And it's like, I get chills thinking about that. Because like going the founder route from a design school is just like not a career path, really. Like most people are like, I want to go do graphic design, UX, and I like that's great. Or like I want to start my own branding agency, but like that's where my mind runs to. And like so listening to someone like Brian talk about that, talking about like composition, talking about color palettes, talking about furniture, knowing that he didn't go to like a Harvard or a Stanford, or he wasn't initially like an engineer. Like I love that story. Like I like trying to explain to my mom and dad like that, like Airbnb is a concept. Like they get it now, but they were like, why do you like this so much? And this is a kid who went to design school who like understood entrepreneurship. And also like on the other flip side of this, I think a little bit of my desire to be in that space at the end game, like long term, is like, there's no one who looks like me. There's no one who like looks like me, who's like tattooed, running a major company. Like that is so important to me. And it's like founders are eccentric. Like we know that, like Dorsey, like all that stuff, like they're eccentric. And I would love to have all my clothes like made to measure like Zuckerberg. Like that's so fire. I love that. It's the coolest thing in the world. But it's like, I think about these things where it's like, there's no one who looks like me who is like at those meetings in like Sun Valley with all the tech, with like tech people. And there's like no one who looks like me in like the VC world. And that is something that I'm like, not trying to like die on that hill, but I think would be cool just in the context of representation. I think that would be a very cool thing.
Yeah. Dude, I got to have you back on to talk about all this like tech stuff. It would be awesome to one day see you as a CEO wearing a Japanese denim jacket on stage. Bro, I see the vision, bro.
No, like literally walking out, like one of my, okay, I'll say this, like, you know, the two biggest, like journalists and like tech, her name is like Carol and like Walt, like they interviewed like Jobs, Gates, like at the D5 conference. She's interviewed Elon and Evan, and it's like a very historic stage. It'd just be the coolest thing to be walking out there. And I'm just sitting there in like these perfectly broken in, like raw denim jeans. And it's like, tell us about your story. It's like, actually, these jeans were like present with me when I made a career switch at 30. Now here at 38, we're here in Palo Alto. And actually, and it's like, Taylor, when did you get, like, it would just be cool to do like, where are these t-shirts from? Like, actually, they're from this brand called Whitesville, and they're actually a write-off because my entire team wears them now. But how do you feel about tattoos? It's like, well, I have two of my ex-girlfriends' names tattooed on me, but we're now here in Silicon Valley. We're really enjoying everything. And I'm just like, that would be the coolest thing in the world, man. Yeah. It'd just be the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, you know, like how a lot of these tech companies, they just have merch in the offices that people can wear. Instead, you have all these like white tees, or maybe instead, like as a perk for working there, you actually have a tattoo artist on call, ready to go just for your company so people can get tatted up whenever they want.
I was literally thinking about this, like, my reference to like product besides like making a painting is like merchandise, like and like screen printing t-shirts. And I'm just like, dude, if we could have like a kick-ass like SaaS product and also have the best merch in California, like the best company merch, where it's like the same shit where like people who don't even work out wear like Peloton merch, and that's the coolest thing to me. They wear like SoulCycle merch to like hang out. And I'm like, that is the coolest thing in the world. I was like, if there could be some like cool logo and it just like have the dopest ass merch, and people are like, oh, do you work in fashion? Actually, I work at one, and it's like, that's just like that, like, also like, no, I don't think anyone comes at tech through that lens either. Like merch is usually like, here's this screen printed thing on such and such. So I'm just like, what if we did like a screen print on like a Japanese tubular 25-ounce sweatshirt, and it's like flown in from Japan, and we all went to the factory, and it's all right off. It's like, that'd be something like that would be kind of fun. But
we shall. And then it just has like Flower Financial or whatever you call the company. And
bro, that's what I'm saying. Like that was, it's like we have like a garden in the backyard where we can do like meditations, you know what I'm saying? You can like, welcome to create, where at the beginning you're a seed and at the end you blossom. And it's like, bro, I got this whole thing cooked. I watched too many freaking like We Crash, like Founder Store. I'm like, you're just not super pumped. And I'm just like, that's what I'm fucking saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. This is your chance. Let the people know what you got going on. Plug anything you want.
Yeah, bro. Let's see. Next thing coming on, I'm releasing some hats that just has a simple black, like white logo on it. Just waiting for the photos to come out now. Those will be on TikTok and Instagram. If anyone needs help with their taxes, filing, whether it be business or personal, my dad and I are doing tax returns. We're in the middle of tax season right now. Currently, like kind of documenting my like somewhat of an everyday new change into a career path. So I'll be studying for like the first initial exam like today. I'm moving to Savannah, Georgia. If there's someone who's watching here who works in the finance field, I would love a mentor in this space. You know, if you're like, well, you see this cool, interesting person who has access to this like creative industry, maybe there's a connect I can make from here or something like that. And if I can help represent you guys, or if I can work for you guys or get an internship, that would be great. Then just follow me on TikTok and hit me up on Instagram. Like all my DMs are on. I check all my requests and I respond to as many people as I can.